This past weekend, a new Sam Raimi movie opened in theaters, Send Help. So today I'm going to stop and rank all 16 Sam Raimi movies from the worst to the best. While I'm talking, be sure to join me down below in the comments section. Let me know your ranking of the Sam Raimi movies that you've seen. My list is not the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. As I went into this and rewatched all of his movies over the last couple of months, just kind of reminded myself why I love Sam Raimi movies so much. It shouldn't have surprised me too much since I've been a big fan of his since the 90s when I discovered Army of Darkness, but in an era where I've been frustrated with so many movies just feeling so corporate and lacking a distinct style and flavor to them, you watch Sam Raimi movies and there's just so much Raimi in almost all of his films. So this was a real pleasure to rewatch his filmography, and let's get started. In last place, For the Love of the Game, and the reason it's in last place is actually fairly simple. Of the 16 movies on this list, this is the only one I just struggled to rewatch. I just had no interest in it because it's just such a slog of a film, where it doesn't really feel like a Sam Raimi movie. It feels like a Kevin Costner baseball movie, and he's made quite a few baseball movies, and he's made even more sports movies. I would say that this is the worst of Kevin Costner's sports movies. Almost all of them I really enjoy, but this movie, the specific angle it takes on baseball, just didn't really interest me. It's a guy whose career's coming to an end. It's called For the Love of the Game, but it's really about his relationship. And it's so long. It's over 2 hours long. It's very slow. It's, like I said, it's much more of a relationship movie than it is a overcome the odds sports movie or anything like that.
And baseball teams allow a context for men to be friends with other men in a very intense, close way. And this movie is a story of friendships.
And as a Raimi film, there's just none of his usual flair, which I'm almost positive was entirely intentional, that this is a project he did largely for the purpose of showing the studios, hey, I can make professional movies like you guys like. I don't have to just do my weird Raimi-isms. I can make a studio movie and play ball. Pun actually not intended, but noted. But I just don't think it has enough to offer for anyone. There are other movies on this list that have rougher edges, more overt flaws. We'll get to them very soon. But in terms of that just appeal, of having something to offer that I want, of Raimi's films, this is the one that has the least to offer. I mean, the end of the movie has some emotional payoff. It kind of works. But to get there, the journey is not worth the payoff. Speaking of movies that are rough around the edges, Crimewave. This was Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell's follow-up to The Evil Dead. And running on the success of that, they wanted to do something wildly different and kind of do this screwball comedy of sorts. And they teamed up with some up-and-coming new writers, a pair of brothers, the Coen brothers. On paper, this should be a really interesting film because it's a Coen Brothers script, Sam Raimi direction, lots of youthful energy, but it is just kind of one of these movies that is just kind of ill-conceived from the ground up, and then it was hurt greatly by studio interference as well. They wanted to do like a Hitchcockian comedy, the way they described it, where it's like a man gets caught up in a murder plot, but it's a screwball comedy. And maybe there's something interesting that could have been done with that, but this is just so wild. The comedy is so broad. The concept so quirky and weird that it never gels together as an individual film. There's no shortage of shots in this movie that are actually quite interesting. There's like one where a lady's running through a door store being chased, and she's like opening and closing them in this very specific rhythmic dance-like way while being chased. Like, there's things that show all of Raimi's potential, and hint at what they were going for. But movies are more than individual shots, individual gags, or broad concepts. You have to bring them together into a cohesive whole. And they just never, this movie never pulls that off.
We learned from Evil Dead how to succeed. We learned from Crimewave how to fail.
I like to eat healthy, high-protein meals, but I'm busy. I've got a YouTube channel, 3 kids, a wife, and it takes a lot of time to prep, cook, and clean up after a healthy meal. Factor removes that entire problem. It doesn't ask you to meal prep or follow recipes. 2 minutes, real food, done. Factor is already made by chefs, designed by dietitians, and delivered to your door. Always fresh, never frozen. It's whole food ingredients, lean proteins, colorful vegetables, and healthy fats. The stuff you would cook with if you had the time.
Just got back from the gym. We've got queso fundido and ground beef and cauliflower rice, all with over 40 grams of protein.
They have 100 rotating meals every week, high protein, calorie smart, Mediterranean, GLP-1 support, ready to eat salads, and a new Muscle Pro collection for strength and recovery. I love the fact that they added that last one. You pick what fits your goals. Healthier eating, calorie management, more protein, whatever you're actually trying to do. This isn't motivation to eat better. It's eliminating the reason you don't. I've been eating Factor meals for several years now, and you should too. Head to factormeals.com/SeanChandler50 off and use code SeanChandler50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Number 14, The Gift. And to be perfectly clear, this is a totally watchable, decent enough film, though a fairly forgettable and mostly generic one. It's fairly straightforward, familiar setup of a young woman gets murdered in a small town, and there's a murder investigation. Kate Blanchett's character is a local single mom who has a gift. She has some psychic abilities, some awareness, can sense things. And out of desperation, they go to her for help with this investigation. She kind of gets swept up into it. But we've seen a lot of movies like this before. The cast here is absolutely stacked. Of course, you got Kate Blanchett in the lead. Keanu Reeves is in here. Just like so, every role is like a familiar face. Giovanna Ribisi. Really great cast. But this is one of those movies made kind of during the Raimi proving himself era. And they came in various degrees of quality and amount of Raimi-isms in there. And so for a movie that has kind of supernatural elements to it, actual dream sequences in it, there's not as much Raimi as I think the movie would have allowed for. It's more straightforward than you'd expect. And so it feels like a movie that anybody could have directed. One of the other fun details behind the scenes on this one, Billy Bob Thornton was one of the screenwriters on the movie. He'd been in A Simple Plan just a couple years before that Raimi directed, and I guess they formed a partnership, and so Raimi directed one of his scripts. That's kind of a fun detail about the film. But like I said, the movie itself, it's totally watchable, it's totally fine, but the kind of movie you just kind of forget after you watch it. And even as a Raimi film, there's not a lot of him in here. It's just him showing, hey, I can work for the studios. I can be a director for hire and do it your way. Next up, Oz the Great and Powerful. A director known for his quirky style tackles a world known for all of its quirky details. Seems like a perfect fit, but the movie itself just feels like too polished of a big studio production. It's enjoyable enough. It's, of course, competently made. You've got a bunch of big name actors and actresses in it. Everything has big budget studio shine to the entire thing, but the movie itself is never as wonderful or as great as the wizard himself. It just doesn't have any real magic to it. It feels like we're trying to take this wild world and make it a modern day blockbuster. Now, one of the real interesting details about it is if you sort of break down the actual structure of the movie, the flow of the film, it's basically the same plot as Army of Darkness. Of this person gets swept off into a foreign world. They're not who people think they are, but they're sent on a big quest. And in the end, they end up like rallying all the people together to battle against some great force coming against them. Like, it has a number of the exact same beats, flows, structures, Army of Darkness, but the Disney-ified version of it, the big slick version of it, once again, with not enough Raimi. And in this context, where this is him post-Spider-Man trilogy, right after Drag Me to Hell, and he just makes a very kind of by-the-numbers, safe adaptation of an Oz story. It tells an Oz story that just feels so conventional. Doesn't mean bad, but it doesn't deliver what you'd expect from it. I think Oz's origin story works better than The Wicked Witches. The Wicked Witches just feels so rushed and kind of cheapened. And I don't know what the deal was with going like full CGI with her look or whatever that was. But, like, it's fine, but like The Gift, forgettable. Number 12, Spider-Man 3. Despite this being not even in the top 10 on this list, this is still a film that I would say is good despite its many flaws. And it's a film I've come to appreciate over time, where I was, like many people, deeply disappointed by it when it first came out. There's so much in this movie that is very easy to point fingers at and laugh at for the absurdity of it. Obviously, the dance numbers, things like that. But once you kind of get past that initial disappointment and not living up to its potential, I mean, I think it does have quite a bit more to offer than people give it credit for. It still very much feels like a Sam Raimi film. It's continuing the character arcs of what's been going on with Peter, Harry, and MJ, and each of them are in different places. There's new conflicts, things like that. And then it brings the friendship with Harry full circle in what happens in the third act. And so there's a number of things in it that I think have plenty of emotional resonance to them. At the end of the day, though, I think this is a film where Sam Raimi needed to make some other movie between Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3. He needed something to cleanse his palate, make himself excited, rejuvenate his creativity, and instead he went straight into Spider-Man 3 while the team was probably a little bit creatively exhausted, running on empty. And there was studio notes pushing him to do too many villains, in particular Venom, who he's openly stated he didn't understand and didn't get. And so it's a movie that just feels a little bit more forced. It doesn't feel like it has that same just organic energy and creativity of the first two films. It's trying to manufacture what came naturally before. And it's still a top-notch team that was able to deliver two amazing films, but just not in the best creative space, not running with ideas that came naturally to them. And so you get a very flawed film that still has a good bit to offer. Number 11, The Quick and the Dead, Sam Raimi's Western. And the fact that this is number 11 on this list is just a statement about how much I enjoy those other movies rather than a statement about any negatives I have about this movie. It's just to say there's 10 Sam Raimi movies where I go, man, I really like this movie. And The Quick and the Dead, I just go, man, I like this movie. I love that this film exists.
It's a real modern take on the Sergio Leone westerns of the 60s.
But it's not quite as strong as the other ones. This is a film that has an insanely good cast to it. You have Sharon Stone kind of as the big star of the film, and the person was kind of the producer that pulled everything together. She wanted to hire Sam Raimi and fought to hire a couple of these lesser-known fellows in here. This guy named Russell Crowe that people weren't familiar with yet, and this young kid right here, Leonardo DiCaprio. In fact, the studio did not want to hire Leonardo DiCaprio, and she was so insistent that he was the right person, she paid Leonardo DiCaprio out of her own pocket, in which case it's like, that's wild that that's a thing that happened. She picked Sam Raimi personally. She personally paid Leonardo DiCaprio to be in this movie. And therefore you have a Western with this, Gene Hackman's in this movie. Like, at the time this movie came, Gene Hackman is an absolute legend. And he's a legend in the space of doing Westerns because he just did Unforgiven. So just like this insanely stacked cast, like every side character, like Lance Henriksen, Keith David, like you just go through it. Commissioner Gordon from Tim Burton's Batman movies, Jigsaw. There's so many familiar faces, like packing out all the side roles. Just an insane cast in a Sam Raimi Western that he's described it as kind of his tribute to Sergio Leone Westerns, but it also is still very Sam Raimi with the angles, the zooms, the sorts of shots that he uses, stuff like that. So I just love that this is a film that exists with this stacked of a cast. I don't think the story works as well as it should because it is built entirely around a quick draw tournament, which means the first act is really compelling. The third act is really satisfying, but in the middle, there's only so much you can do with a quick draw. There's only so many variations of how somebody wins a quick draw in things that can differentiate one from the other.
I didn't really study the gunfights. I went about them very specifically, trying to make them interesting visually and different from one another.
So it just gets a little bit cyclical in the middle, and there needed to be something in there to kind of change the dynamics up rather than two people stand at each other and wait till the clock chime and then they draw. That's kind of the big negative here. There's not quite enough of that in the story to make it pop, but man, the cast, the genre, and Raimi doing it, I love it. Bringing us into the top 10, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And this is an interesting one because on the one hand, I understand and largely agree with most of the common criticisms of this film. But I also think that people give too much weight to those criticisms and don't give the movie enough credit where credit is due. Generally speaking, I think that this movie does work. It has a clear storyline that we're following. There's an arc for Doctor Strange. There is plenty of action, plenty of weirdness, and there's no shortage of very Raimi-esque sequences in this movie. Whether you're talking about the creepy eye monster at the beginning, the eye monster, very Raimi. Whether you're talking about the sequence where Wanda kills the Illuminati and it gets very creepy and weird and very Raimi. The musical note fight, the zombie Doctor Strange with all the demon things flying around. This is all very Raimi stuff with plenty of Raimi weirdness to it. And so, in terms of does the good outweigh the bad for me with this film, the good far outweighs the bad. But it is a movie that has a lot of very obvious flaws. It's a movie very infamous for its difficult production. How much of that was because of COVID making it very difficult to make the movie, so they had to keep doing rewrites to try and figure out how to get everybody to show up. How much of that was they were indecisive? How much of it was they were trying to change the movie to have more cameos? I don't know. What I do know is that one actress said there was 33 drafts of the script. Elizabeth Olsen had all kinds of stuff to say about making the movie.
Then Doctor Strange, like we know those films often are fluid, and it seems like this one was a bit fluid. Like
so fluid. I there's a point in making the movie where I just stopped reading drafts. I was like, this is just gonna change again.
Just CGI is going to sort everything out, and
I did my voiceover work to make everything that I'd already done on camera make sense. That's how we did Doctor Strange. That one was a wild ride.
And then Patrick Stewart, Haley Atwell also had very interesting things to say about the production of the movie.
So did you even know which characters were going to end up in that finished scene? Like,
I didn't. I think that they were, we did lots of different things, lots of different takes, and then they kind of, the way that they edited it was like, suddenly just very quick.
was everybody there when you shot your stuff?
No. John Krasinski wasn't there. Patrick Stewart wasn't there.
Were you alone? Like, were you with the other actors?
I was alone.
The magic of movie making.
The big scene, I think each one of the leading actors, they were shot on their own.
So it was weird.
That's what I've heard.
Frustrating and disappointing.
And when you watch the film, you can see all of that. It feels like a third of this movie is very Sam Raimi, and 2/3 of the movie is fairly generic MCU. Which, like, that doesn't make it bad. It feels like the franchise that it's in. But it is a little bit disappointing that you don't get the full Raimi experience. And that to me is like, I wish we'd been able to get the full Raimi experience of like, let Raimi cook. Stop doing the producer top-down treatment for Sam Raimi, comic book movie legend. Number 9, Drag Me to Hell. After directing 3 mega hit Spider-Man movies, Sam Raimi went back to his roots, directed a small, insane horror movie. And I kind of absolutely love the fact that he chose to do that as his follow-up to 3 Spider-Man movies.
but it was a good lesson for me about working with a much more bare budget, a smaller team, and a shorter schedule.
Now, this is a film, I didn't see it when it first came out. I first watched it 3 years ago when Multiverse of Madness came out, and watched it in this room by myself and appreciated it enough, but that's probably not the best way to watch this movie, and actually then rewatched it in December and kind of a similar experience with it, like, oh, look, kind of enjoyed this movie, but then I went to go see it a week and a half back in the theater, took my son to go see it at an Alamo Draft House late at night with a bunch of Raimi fans on the big screen, and it was like the movie clicked for me. The movie plays so well with an audience full of people laughing, squirming, wincing. Horror movies and comedies are designed to be a part of a community experience. Like anything that gets a reaction out of you or a laugh, it's contagious. And so you take Sam Raimi weirdness and dark comedy plus a movie filled with kind of gross out cringe humor. It plays so good in the theater. And one of the things that people miss about this movie is that it's rated PG-13. It's pretty nasty. Like, it's one of the nastiest and grossest PG-13 movies ever made. And I think a big part of that is that because they went PG-13, they had to try and find all the loopholes to be horrifying, gross, unsettling. And so all of a sudden we have like an old lady like casually vomiting up yellow bile while sitting at a desk and taking her dentures out, and she gets in a car accident and her face flies forward, and you have something that's actually a very shocking, horrifying image of her teeth exploding in front of you, which is like, oh, an old lady's teeth exploding in my face, but they're dentures, so it's like not actually showing violence in that sense against a human, it's just her dentures exploded. It's so much darker than you'd think it would be with a PG-13 rating, and it's gross and dark and unsettling in unexpected ways because it can't go bloody. It can't go for the conventional way to do all of that. So for me, this is a movie that got a big, gigantic burst from seeing it the right way with an audience on the big screen. That really does matter. And all of the wild energy of the movie plays so great. Other thing, the music in here is surprisingly good. Like, there's this just like little piano line for the lead character and kind of her little journey and her search for confidence and everything that she's doing that you don't normally get music like that in horror movies. And so just all these little details that kind of worked for it. I'm not super into movies about someone messes with this thing, has a curse put on them, and they have 3 days to figure it out or else they die. That's not normally my vein of horror. But this one is just done really well.
I was really happy to see as a fan that you gave a proper big starring role to one of your old cast members, your Oldsmobile. Gave a good role this time.
Did you believe its performance?
I did. It was fantastic.
It was an attempt to get a reaction, an emotional reaction from the car. Could it cause a chill? It was trying to play its part in a horror movie, a little more important part than it's played before.
Number 8, Darkman. Now, I have a 36-year-long history with Darkman. This was my introduction to Sam Raimi, and I did not know it was my introduction to Sam Raimi at the time. But I saw a TV spot for this back in 1990, and it freaked me out so bad that I literally passed out. True story. Little bit of context. Shortly before this, I was at a friend's house and they were watching like a daytime talk show that had someone having plastic surgery, like showing a real face skinned. Freaked out, passed out. So shortly afterwards, I see the trailer for this and there's a scene where a mask gets ripped off. With my brain primed for plastic surgery, I didn't see a mask being ripped off. I saw a guy's face being ripped off. Freaked out and passed out from the trailer to this movie. And Sam Raimi has been a part of my life ever since. But this is a movie that I saw it 25, 30 years ago for the first time and was fine with it. Rewatched it for when Multiverse of Madness came out, and it kind of became a little bit one of my late night obsessions. One of those movies I just kind of love to throw on late at night and just kind of watch it in the background. And it's 2 sequels. There's 2 direct-to-video sequels that are, for direct-to-video sequels, perfectly fine, though the casting of Arnold Vosloo to replace Liam Neeson is baffling. I think so much of what makes this movie so good is that it is a true original Sam Raimi superhero of sorts, where it pulls from his love of comic books, action movies, serials.
We wrote it like a comic book, And comic books don't really have definitive endings for their characters. They just go on.
It feels it's pulled straight out of like the late 80s, early 90s action cop crime thrillers with the setting and the villains in it. But the influences are also like Phantom of the Opera and Hunchback of Notre Dame. It has this gothic romance feel to it. It's about a man losing himself.
It's always been a childhood fantasy, to be really honest. I was struck with Charles Laughton. Do you remember Charles Laughton and the Hunchback of Notre Dame?
Indeed.
And when I read Sam's script, it seemed to embody that and all those other tragic, doomed characters.
And it's like full-blown weird Sam Raimi. This is Evil Dead 2 Sam Raimi, followed right after Evil Dead 2, and does a superhero movie, and it's bonkers. There's so much... Like, the story could play straightforward if it wasn't Sam Raimi, but because it's Sam Raimi, there's all of the crazy angles, transitions, way that it visualizes what's going on in his head that just makes for an amazing Sam Raimi campy experience. And so much of even the fun of it is that it stars Liam Neeson just a couple of years before he was Oscar Schindler, and Frances McDermott is in there. So another one of these movies that just like, it's been a pleasant surprise to kind of almost rediscover it in my 40s and realize how much I just love this type of Sam Raimi. Number 7, Send Help, the latest Sam Raimi film. This was one of my most anticipated films of the year. As someone that's a big Sam Raimi film, I loved that he was going back to doing an original film, a smaller scale film, not doing a big franchise movie. Like I just told you, I really enjoyed Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but that's working for Kevin Feige. And this is a true return to form for Sam Raimi. The first like real Sam Raimi movie since Drag Me to Hell, and the first R-rated Sam Raimi movie in like 25 years. Stars Rachel McAdams, Dylan O'Brien, two actors that I really enjoy, and both of them give some of my favorite performances that either one of them have ever given. The magic of Rachel McAdams in this movie is that at the beginning of it, you have to believe that, movie star Rachel McAdams is someone that would be so awkward that she'd be off-putting to her coworkers, but still be endearing and charming to an audience. And she pulls that off perfectly and then transitions to the crazy version of herself on the island that is still the awkward, weird person. But what happens when she's the person in power where she thrives? And then Dylan O'Brien just plays just a fantastic, just smarmy jerk, just the biggest douchebag. You buy into it. Then he has to play his own little line where the whole movie you're kind of like, all right, has he changed? Has he grown? Is he manipulating her? What exactly is he doing? Right, and he's right on this line of you trust him, you don't trust him, the whole film. And there's a sequence in this where both of them are just knocking it out of the park. But he has to just sit there like this and act with his eyes. Like, his eye acting in this movie is some of the best eye acting I've seen, I guess, since, Get Out 8 years ago or whatever. Just this eye acting, little micro expressions with his eyes where he's just trapped there. He's so good. And it's a movie that just takes kind of the simple premise about power dynamics shifting and how power corrupts and interpreted through Raimi wackiness. But it's mature Raimi wackiness. It's not the kind of just totally unrestrained insanity of Darkman, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. But it's that guy again, just as a little bit more mature, telling a different type of story, but still quirky. And from the very beginning, we're in offices and we're zooming in on little pieces of food stuck on her face and capturing the discomfort of the people in the room and what they're zeroing in on. And just it goes for it in a mature Raimi sort of way. So a lot of times, January is not known for having the best releases. We had a great January. Bone Temple and Send Help, great kickoff to the year and a great return to form for Sam Raimi. Number 6, A Simple Plan. And I would say that this is easily and by far the best of the non-Raimi films.
I was really attracted to Simple Plan because the book was so engrossing. And because he concentrated on creating these real characters, the suspense was magnified tenfold.
And when I say that, I'm referring to the 3 movies between The Quick and the Dead and Spider-Man, A Simple Plan. The Gift and For the Love of the Game that from the outside feel like Raimi trying to show the studios, I can play your game. I don't have to just make Sam Raimi movies. I can make movies playing by your rules. And this is a great example of the fact that Sam Raimi can make a movie that is great, that is filled with tension, intrigue, that does not use any of his classic trademark visual flair.
The characters really are the ones that were telling the story in this picture. So I decided to present it in a very staid manner where we could focus on their faces and their relationships and not try and draw the audience out of the picture with some fancy, dramatic camera move.
None of that is on display, and that was very intentional on his part as he felt it didn't fit the movie, but he was still able to tell a great story just through storytelling. In the case of this movie, it's just a classic what would you do thriller where three men find a downed plane in the woods filled with drug money and they take it. And basically you're seeing the consequences of that as they're trying to debate when to spend it, how to spend it, trying to cover up the fact that they were there so nobody knows that they were ever there. And just immediately tension starts to rise. Paranoia sets in, greed starts to take over each individual, and it's just a really smart script that it's a tragic progression where individual small choices keep compounding, making things worse and worse and worse.
But once she's accepted that idea, the seed in her mind grows, and she becomes accustomed to having this money.
And creates the situation that they can't get out of it. The story is driven by choices, not by coincidences. And you get amazing performances from everyone involved. But I mean, the standout without question is Billy Bob Thornton, who is like an amazing actor that for a while we didn't talk about all that much, but he's kind of having this career renaissance with Landman. But he is a tremendous talent, and this is just another example of that, where he's playing someone wildly different from who he played in Sling Blade and who he played in Armageddon right around the same time he did this movie. He's just fantastic. But the key thing here is that it's Sam Raimi making an awesome movie with no gimmicks, without relying on the visual flair or his sense of humor, pure storytelling, and he knocked it out of the park. In fifth place, Army of Darkness, and this movie is the actual on-ramp for my love of Sam Raimi. Darkman was my introduction, though I didn't know it, and then shortly afterwards, when I was in the 5th grade, I saw the trailer for this weird movie with a guy with like a chainsaw for a hand. I was like, what on earth am I looking at? What is this thing? And was fascinated by it. A few years later, I was finally able to watch the movie that had this incredibly epic poster, and it became my obsession throughout most of the mid-late 90s as I discovered the Evil Dead franchise. It is a movie that is basically the perfect cult film.
Hail to the king, baby.
That it is designed to be quirky and weird and unrestrained Raimi. It has no intentions of being the biggest and the slickest movie. It has no intentions of softening the rough edges to appeal to the masses. It's a movie that almost relishes the fact that its ambitions far exceed its budget. There's, it goes for these gigantic armies of the dead with a very modest budget for the film. There's any number of effects in the movie that you could easily nitpick and go, oh, that doesn't look so good. That hasn't aged well. Well, it's not that it hasn't aged well. It also didn't look great back when the movie came out over 30 years ago. But all of that, if you criticize it for that, is to miss the point. That it is a movie made to be this insane artistic expression that combines all of Sam Raimi's weird loves, horror, action, screwball comedy, time travel, period pieces, war movie. It's all in there. The Chosen One, prophecies, while having a guy with a chainsaw hand. And so there's so many levels to just the absurdity of it. It's Bruce Campbell at his grooviest.
Groovy.
It's Sam Raimi at his goofiest. And for those reasons, it stood the test of time. Even almost because of its rough edges. Because it worked, flaws and all, back in the day, it works today just fine. Showed it a couple times to my son Liam, and he immediately starts quoting it, becomes obsessed with Ash Williams himself, because it just has that it factor of nerdy, corny coolness. It is that perfect blending of it all together. And so, like, it doesn't hit me the same way it did when I was a teenager and in my early 20s. So it's not quite at the top of the list. But I think, if I'm just being honest, of movies that have meant a lot to me, stayed with me, that still just kind of put a childish grin on my face, this one's way up there. In fourth place, The Evil Dead, a movie which Sam Raimi shot when he was only 20 years old. He had absolutely no idea what he was doing, and he created a horror classic out of just pure creativity and instincts. And in reading Bruce Campbell's kind of autobiography discussing the making of this movie, he talks about how Sam Raimi doesn't do standard coverage with wide shot, mid, close-ups. He always has a set of like shots in his own head that are his own kind of way of doing things. And I wonder how much of that simply comes from he just learned to make movies by making movies. He didn't go to school to learn the rules. He got a camera, took out some loans, and made a movie. And whatever felt right, whatever felt interesting to him, that's what he shot. Truly intuitive filmmaking rather than rules-based filmmaking. And so you get a movie that absolutely has got some rough edges. That's almost the charm of the film. But you get something that's like a pure creative expression. Someone that doesn't know the rules, but has a great get it factor when it comes to making awesome movies. The movie is truly unsettling from beginning to end, where it just creates this atmosphere of unease with like roaming sounds in the background. Even so much of the low budget 80s gore effects, sometimes they're in and of themselves are uniquely gross out to me and weird to me, as there's like strange, like weird white liquid shooting out of things, and they're just putting clam chowders pouring out of bodies. It's so unsettling and gross, and the movie lingers on the shots a little bit too long while there's these noises. All of it just creates a never-ending sense of tension inside of you. And this kind of plays across the way the sound is used, the way the gore is used, the way that it just kind of has this intensity that just keeps building and building and building until the credits are rolling. And how much of that is they just knew what they were doing? How much of it is luck? How much of it is they stumbled into it? And how much of it is the shots were too long because, hey, we spent all this time making it, so we got to use everything we have? And it turns into just almost an accidental thing that makes their movie more effective? I don't know. But it's a film that all of these years later remains one of the best cabin in the woods movies. There's a reason that this franchise has stuck and Sam Raimi became an icon, despite all of the things about this movie that should have set it up for utter failure. A very young cast, amateur actors, they didn't know what they were doing. And they created something that has stood the test of time. Real quick, before I give you my top 3, remember to join me down below in the comments section. Let me know, what's your ranking of the Sam Raimi movies that you've seen? I've done a ton of these director rankings. Whoever your favorite director is, there's a very good chance I've already done a director ranking for that person or one of your other favorite directors, because there's like 30 or 40 of them that I've done. There's a playlist somewhere around here. You can check that out when this video's over. In third place, Spider-Man 2, a sequel that many think is better than the original Spider-Man, and a movie that is widely regarded as one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. And part of what makes it so crazy is that the movie was made just 2 years after Spider-Man came out, so it had a really quick turnaround. But this is a creative team that were just firing on all cylinders. They knew what they wanted to do, and they had enough creative juice in the tank to crank out another fantastic Spider-Man movie. It continues and deepens the themes from the first movie about Peter Parker trying to balance being Peter Parker with being Spider-Man and the weight that comes with that and the loss that comes with that, the deceptions that he has to live in that hurt the people around him. We get another great villain that's another tragic villain. And in the case of this one, gets kind of this redemptive arc as he's driven insane by his AI robot arms, but the man is still in there. And so it would get him a little bit of redemption in there. The train sequences, I think, is one of the greatest action sequences in a comic book movie. I love the way that the Spider-Man movies use New York City itself as almost a character, as the community is treated like a character, and they have like a loyalty to their own. And they play that out in the sequence that he's desperate to save them, but they equally want to save and help him.
It's all right.
We won't tell nobody.
And he can trust them. I love that little flavor that they have in there. The payoff of MJ realizing who Spider-Man is. It's a simple shot. It doesn't require any words, and it's just played to perfection. I've said it a million times before, and the thing that holds it back from our being top Spider-Man movie for me, I've just never liked the power loss subplot. It's never worked for me, and people are like, tell me, Sean, you don't understand. It's this. Like, no, I understand it. I don't like it. I don't like this sort of definition, this mechanism, this explanation for the way things play out. Like, I just doesn't work for me. There's nothing you can say to me because I'm not confused as to the plot point. But it's just never fully landed for me. So that holds it back from being at that absolute top tier for me. But this is a list of movies where the top 10 are all movies where I really enjoy that, and it's still number 3 on the list. So I really like this movie, but there's just kind of a subplot that has just never really worked for me. Our runner-up, The Evil Dead 2, and this is peak crazy Raimi, where he was young enough, naive enough to make a movie this bonkers and weird as a follow-up to the original Evil Dead. He was still kind of in this phase of just kind of unrestrained creativity where he's not trying to fit into some Hollywood system yet. He hasn't gotten old enough to try and put barriers on what he can do. There's still this sense in which he doesn't know what you are and you're not supposed to do, but he's also been given like way more money than he had on the first film. Groovy. And he's got 2 movies behind him, so he's got experience, he's a little bit older, he's got money, but he still has just as much insane, young, creative energy as ever. And you get just this magical expression that is The Evil Dead 2. A movie that's 1 part remake, 1 part sequel, pure Sam Raimi. And it's able to merge together his love for horror, slapstick, comedy, action, kind of grander mythology, all blended into this weird, bizarro film where we're 15 minutes into it and a dead body starts doing ballet outside. Like, it's so insane and just crazy. This is another one that's like peak Bruce Campbell physical comedy, like the sequence where he's fighting his hand in a kitchen. It's just, it only works because of the physical comedy that he's able to pull off. And he's committing to the part and able to kind of have this performance where there's what his hand is doing and what the rest of his body's doing. And there's a disconnect. They're not in sync with each other. They're fighting each other, and he pulls it off. I mean, it's just amazing physical acting and the physical performance. And so just, it's a movie that you can understand why some people watching like, I don't, that's weird. I don't understand what is this pure insanity. But if you get it, like, it's a truly special film that inspired so many people afterwards and just has been putting smiles on people's faces through the horror, through the comedy, through the just audacity of it all. And so one of my favorite horror movies. But coming in at number 1, Spider-Man 2002. And this is a very special movie for me for a variety of reasons, both as a fan of movies as well as just very personal reasons. Where Sam Raimi, a director that meant a great deal to me during my formative years in the 90s, is given Spider-Man, probably the most popular comic book character of the 21st century, who's most broadly beloved across ages, across cultures. Those two things merge together, and his weird quirkiness fits perfectly with Spider-Man. To be able to create a movie that is true to Spider-Man, faithful to the source material, but also has personality to it, to distinguish it, to make it so it doesn't just feel like a corporate product. It feels like Sam Raimi's creative expression, but that syncs up perfectly with Spider-Man in so many ways. I personally I love origin stories. I have a bias towards origin stories because the root source material of an origin story at its core is a story of becoming. There are these big sweeping character arcs where just the transition, the change is so abundant and obvious. I just resonate with that sort of thing on a easier level. There's less friction to me just loving that sort of thing. And that's what this is. It's a classic origin story for Spider-Man, and it's one that, we all know.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
And you get just this classic true version of that in live action right at the moment in time where the technology was able to pull off an accurate Spider-Man. And what that means is that had they made this movie earlier, the technology wouldn't have been there to be able to do swinging that is thrilling and exciting and exhilarating. We'd have a guy like swinging by a rope, and it wouldn't have been the same thing. Like, you can watch the old 1970s TV show where they had a guy swing from a rope. It was kind of cool, but it's nothing compared to what this movie was able to pull off. So just at the right moment in time, the technology advanced. A director had spent 20 years building up his resume to be able to work within the system, doing those "let me prove I can do it" movies, but also was kind of a weird guy that loved nerdy stuff and had a flavor to it. And you merged it all together at just the right time to make a movie that was special. And I mean, of course, Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin is amazing, and Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst are iconic in their roles. So just like a movie that lands on every level for me. And on a very deeply personal level, this was the first movie I saw in the theater after my dad died. And just, a few weeks after he passed away, I went to the theater, and it was kind of like the first return to normal after an event that kind of turned my life and my world upside down. And that's kind of what movies can be, is an escape from the pain of this world, and something will say, hey, it'll be okay. You'll be okay. It's not to deny the pain of the past, but your life will continue on and you continue to have fun. And this was one of those little pieces of little glimmer of hope for moving forward. And so for me, it's a movie that has always meant a great deal to me. I've seen it a zillion times. I now have kids and they've now seen it a zillion times. It has stood the test of time. It holds up. It still works. So it comes in. And if you enjoyed this video, remember I've got other director rankings. You can find them in that playlist wherever it is at. Tarantino, Scorsese, Spielberg, Shyamalan, and many, many more. Check that over here. And keep talking movies and TV to